Ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros, most of what we do is just mindless. I read a statistic the other day that said over 40% of what we do is just mindless and habitual. And it makes sense because when I do my normal YouTuber activities like brush my teeth, or take my morning poop, or wash the dishes, I don't give that much thought to those things. They're just things that I've done so many times that they're part of my daily routine. They're habitual. But when it comes to personal finance, I don't think that 40% of people's decisions are mindless and habitual. There's no way it's that low. It has to be double or maybe even triple that number because no one in the conscious, rational mindset would do things like take on payments they can't afford or go in debt over a cup of coffee or spend every penny of their paycheck. No, people don't make these decisions because they're trying to screw themselves over, but most people just have mindless financial habits. Many people make these bad financial decisions because they're habitual. They've done them over and over and over, and they just don't recognize them. So in this video, I want to point out some of these common toxic financial habits that people have that hold them back in life. And when you recognize these habits, you can start to unlearn them, and it will lead you to a richer, more intentional life. So here are 5 toxic financial habits to unlearn. Habit 1. Spend credit and pay off debt. In America, God's favorite country, we don't believe in spending money. In fact, most Americans will go their whole life without spending a single dollar. No, we Americans are much more sophisticated than that. We're much more creative than that. So we created this whole new system, and it looks like this. We get our paycheck and give that money to the credit lender. Then the credit lender buys us a product or service that we want at an interest rate of 14.99 to 24.99 APR. It makes a lot of sense when you think about it, right? Why buy a TV in cash for $500 when you can get the credit lender to buy it for you for $575? It's basic arithmetic. But all jokes aside, most people actually do this. It's crazy. Most people will borrow all their money from the credit lender and then pay them back at these insane interest rates. It's a habit that doesn't benefit you, and it's very costly. So instead of being in the habit of spending credit, get in the habit of avoiding the middleman and pay up front. For most purchases, you don't need to work with this middleman that's charging insane interest rates. You just need to follow a more simple formula, and it looks like this. First, you get your paycheck. Then you save money until you can afford to pay it up front. And once you have enough money, you can buy the product or service with no interest rate. When you cut out the middleman and pay for everything up front, your life becomes a lot cheaper and a lot easier. But this system comes with a catch, and it's patience. In order for this system to work, you need patience, and most people don't have it. And that's why everyone is in the habit of using this other system. But if you develop patience in your life and get in the habit of cutting out the middleman, your life will be a lot easier and a lot cheaper. Habit 2. Setting no money at negative $10,000. It doesn't matter how bad you are with money. There comes a point when you realize that you can no longer make these careless financial decisions, when you understand that you just can't afford things anymore, and you're forced to do things like stop going through the drive-thru and eat rice and beans, cancel all your subscription services and find free entertainment, sell your car and ride the bus for a while. And I call this having no money. And when you realize that you have no money, you have to make intentional decisions to cut your spending and save money. But the sad part about this is that most people have the habit of making these decisions long after they have no money. They have the habit of setting no money at negative $10,000. Most people don't start making these changes when they have $0 because most people don't believe that $0 is no money, but they think that no money is when all the credit cards are maxed out, all their bills are months behind, and their bank is charging them overdraft fees, that once they're drowning in debt, that's when they have no money. I personally believe that most forms of debt are avoidable. You just have to change your mindset. You have to change your idea of what no money means. So instead of being in the habit of thinking no money is drowning in debt, get in the habit of making changes while you still have money. If you start to make these lifestyle changes before you reach zero, you won't have to depend on credit cards and payday loans. These things are completely avoidable. You just have to change your mindset. You have to get out of this habit that having no money is being extremely in debt, and start making these changes long before you have $0. Habit 3, getting the banks to tell you what you can afford. In 2008, something crazy happened, and it was kind of a big deal because unemployment went up to 10%. The stock market lost 54%, and tons of people lost their houses. The problem was the banks were lending out money to people who couldn't afford to pay the monthly payments. Can you believe that? I mean, the banks were being irresponsible and they weren't looking out for the greater good of our society. But as time passes in 2023, we have learned our lesson and we don't make that mistake anymore. Well, that's not exactly true. I get credit card offers in the mail every single day. I can now finance a t-shirt. And in 2 minutes, just by entering my name and salary, I was approved for a car loan with no cash down. We humans are very forgetful, and the banks are lending out money to anybody who is willing to take it. And unfortunately, we're in the habit of believing that if a bank loans us money, we can afford the payments. When you have this habit of thinking the banks will only loan you what you can handle, you're going to take on all these payments that you can't afford. So instead of believing what people offer you is what you can afford, do your own calculations. In this world, you have to figure out things on your own. You have to sit down, look at your own financial situation, and then decide if you can afford to take on this extra payment. Because if you just think that the banks will give you only what you can afford, you're bound to take on all these payments that you can't afford and end up recreating something like what happened in 2008. So get in the habit of deciding for yourself what you can afford. Habit 4, paying yourself last. For most people, when they get their paycheck every month, they are just so selfless. I mean, they say, I'm going to give all this money away and keep nothing for myself. And then they pay their car payment, they pay their rent, they pay their utilities and their other bills. And when they hand out everything, they have a few dollars left for themselves. And because so many people are just so selfless and choose to just give away their money to everyone, we're in the habit of paying ourselves last. But it's silly to be this selfless and just give away all the money and keep what's left over. So instead of paying yourself last, pay yourself first. Whenever you get paid, determine a specific amount of money that you're going to set aside in a savings or investment account. Because when you do that, your account will always be increasing, and then you can be even more selfless and give more away because you have to worry less about yourself. Habit 5, not investing in the stock market. Many people are afraid of the stock market. Many people think that if they put their money in the stock market, it is just all going to be gone when they wake up. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the crypto market. The stock market is not as scary as you think. It is not as risky and as complicated as you think, but most people have this habit of just avoiding it altogether and instead just putting their money in a savings account. And it's good to have a savings account, but the problem is that due to inflation, you lose 2% of your money every single year. Whereas if you put it in the stock market, you'll be able to beat out inflation and maybe even a little bit more. And it's not as complicated as you think. You don't need to hire a financial advisor. You just need to invest in something called index funds. And if you have no idea what index funds are, I made a step-by-step video up here that you can watch and learn how to invest in index funds. It's so easy. But instead of being in the habit of avoiding the stock market, be in the habit of investing in index funds. Get the system to start working for you. Investing is not as scary as it sounds. Over the period of 7 to 10 years, you could double your money just by investing in an S&P 500 index fund. So get in the habit of investing and don't just avoid the topic altogether. As I said in the beginning of this video, 40% of our habits are mindless and habitual. And with money, it is probably double or triple that. So if you start recognizing these weird habits, these mindless habits that we have, and unlearn them, then you can save a lot of money, ultimately leading you to a richer life. And with that, muchas gracias, que tengan un buen día. Video 101. Nos vemos, chicos.